Here we go. Hello, everyone. How you doing there, Mark in? Hey,
Hello, doing well.
good. You look dapper as usual.
You as well.
Well, thanks. We have Forester Mike. Hey there. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Wow. As people are coming on. Some people who I know who I haven't seen in some time. That includes you, Matt. Hello, Cameron. And we have Dawn. Hello, Dawn. Hey there, Paige.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good.
I'm excited to talk about the results of this study. This is exciting.
Yeah, well, you guys worked really hard to deliver this baby. Oh,
Yeah, Max Max was phenomenal on this project.
yeah. And it looks like he may be trying to join. And we have Max and Marie we're waiting on then, right?
Yep.
Okay. Marky, did we get RSVPs from people? If you're looking at the participant list, is there some way to know if we're waiting on anyone?
I believe we had Anicia accepted the invitation as well as Tanya that I can see. I know that also Councilwoman Prince Airy was interested in popping on for a short amount of time and then has to go for another meeting. But other than that, looks like
Anyone from the MUA?
Mihir was unable to join. I know he forwarded it over to the director as well as their head of engineering.
Okay, so to Richie also. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, the good news, folks, is this is recorded, which I hope is okay with everyone.
Yep.
Right? So in my world, meaning any SJC meetings, never start on time. So we give people kind of that 5-minute window, if that's okay with everyone else. Yep. And we were actually trying to understand how to learn to play music during the interlude where we're waiting for a meeting to begin. Right. So
That would be.
I'm learning how to do it, but I don't know how to do it now. So we're just going to have to enjoy each other's company for a couple of minutes here. How you doing there, Max?
I'm good. How's everybody else?
We're good.
Thanks. Yeah.
Excited to birth this. All right,
Yeah.
long and coming.
Yeah. Very excited to show everybody what we've been working on. Yeah, it has been a long time coming.
Yeah. Is Marie joining us too, Ben?
She should be.
I just messaged her to see if she will be joining us.
Okay, thank you. And so then Morgan, are we going to wait on Anicia or what's your thought about that?
It's a good question. think we should I think we should wait maybe another couple minutes just to see if she comes on. Probably has another meeting ahead of time. If not, if she's not able to join, then of course I'll forward over the recording to her.
Okay. And I see Stacy's AI note taker is here. So did Stacy reply with her availability?
Yes.
Okay, so she was going to also attend?
Yes.
Okay. And David Larrabee just joined. He's one of SJC's board members, and he is, along with another board member, Ashwini Visesh, curates our community education program. My partner in crime. How are you, David?
I'm doing okay. Yourself?
Good, good. You're just saying hello to everyone. We want to start at 12:05. be respectful of everyone's time. And Tanya joined. How you doing, Tanya?
Good, I'm here.
Oh, good. Hooray. And Amanda Diamond. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Are we waiting on Andrew?
No, we are not today.
Okay. We're just going to give this one more minute and then we'll kick it off. I was just joking that it's just not ever been my experience that an SJC meeting starts on time. It's just that the way it is. Okay. Who just joined there? Rosie, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, good. Glad you were able to work that out. How you doing, Ashwini?
All good.
Oh, good. Great. So why don't we get going here? We have the University of Vermont Spatial Analytics Lab team. Max Solter taking the lead and presenting today, but we also have Paige, who's the director of the lab, who I'm going to introduce in a moment to speak a little bit about the nature of the spatial analytics lab there at UVM, University of Vermont. But also acknowledging, and thank you everyone for attending today, trying to make your schedules work. Sorry for not giving you more lead time on this, but we have city planning, and we have forestry, and we have sustainability, and we have innovation, and we have Carlos. What office are you with?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Carlos. I work for the Division of Sustainability here at Jersey City.
Okay.
He's
so
our
we have-
junior forester.
Oh, right. Very nice.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. So maybe just to go quickly around the room to introduce yourself, and then I will create a little context here and hand it over to Paige so we can get started. Amanda, you want to start off?
Sure. I am Amanda Diamond. I'm the Director of Sustainability for Jersey City. We are seated within the Department of Infrastructure. Sustainability manages the tree planting across the city and a lot of other green infrastructure projects and energy related projects. So I'm really excited to kind of listen in about how this process all got sorted out. We have the tree canopy data inventory dashboard that we're hoping to launch with an RFP soon enough. So this is definitely going to be very helpful in our approach to managing the tree canopy. And I'll pass it on to Don Giambalvo.
Hey,
Okay.
hi. My name is Dawn Giambalvo. I am the Director of Innovation. I am also located within the Department of Infrastructure, and I support sustainability efforts throughout our department in Jersey City. Thank you.
And then we also have Carlos, who just introduced himself. He's the Sustainability Division's forester. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
I'm
I
the,
hope to meet you soon.
of course, yeah, that'd be great. Very excited to listen in and be able to learn about this report. Um, very excited about the knowledge and learning that's going to take place in this meeting.
Thank you. And Tanya, you and your team? You want to introduce yourself?
Yep, so I'm Tanya Marion. I am the Director of City Planning along with the Director of Zoning. And my team is here. Matt, why don't you go, and then maybe Cam? Is Cam here?
Yeah, Matt Ward, supervising planner. I sit directly beneath Tanya in for city planning. Thank you.
Cameron,
You're muted.
How about now?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
there you
it's because
go.
the headphones have a mute button too. Okay, so I'm a city planner and I sit on the Shade Tree Committee as a non-voting representative of the planning department as required by the Shade Tree Committee ordinance. Yeah, so just an ambassador of the planning department and I'm very excited.
Very nice. So we have a few people from SJC on as well. We have 3 board members and I'll introduce them by name in a second, but Rosie, who is Rosie George, SJC's GIS lead. Rosie, why don't you introduce yourself, what you do?
Hi. I'm Rosie George. My main, I work mainly as the GIS lead for Sustainable Jersey City. I also work as an adjunct at Hunter College in the Department of Geography and Environmental Science. And my research mainly focuses around the intersection of sustainability and urban heat. And that's kind of what I also work with Sustainable Jersey City for.
And Heather Sporn.
Hi, I'm Heather Sporn. I'm a landscape architect. I'm on the SJC board, and I'm also the representative on the Shade Tree Committee. I'm also, on the board of the Reservoir, Jersey City Reservoir Alliance. So, and I have a long history of of government work in my previous life.
Thank you. Ashwini?
Sure. Ashwini Vasisht, on the board, ecological planner, I guess. I teach sustainability at Ramapo College. I trained originally as a planner and work now at ecosystem services kinds of things. Thank you.
And David?
Yeah, I'm David Larrabee. I'm a retired professor of physics, but also a long time.
No, David, you're muted.
No, we hear
No, I
him.
hear him.
Yeah, sorry, Ash. Dave Larrabee, retired professor of physics, but also a long time involved in what we call eco-justice, environmental and ecological justice, and also that work as an eco-theologian. And board member. A lot of my work concerns with the effects of ecological situations on the marginalized, both nationally and internationally.
Thank you. And Stacy joined us. Stacy, we had already started a round of introductions here. You can look on the participant list.
Yeah, I joined on the Teams and then it shot me to here, so I was late. Sorry. My name is Stacey Flanagan. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Jersey City, and I just wanted to hear more.
Right. And now it is my pleasure, the very hardworking team at the University of Vermont Spatial Analytics Lab. I'm going to introduce you, Paige, before we introduce Max to do the presentation. But I just have to mention that Max was an intern at SJC before he landed at UVM, and then after graduating from UVM, became an analyst at the lab and has now spearheaded the tree canopy study here in Jersey City. He's from Jersey City. His mom still lives in Jersey City. He frequents Jersey City. So he is of Jersey City and conducted this. So this is great. But Paige, could you, as the director of the lab, just talk a little bit about, the lab and the opportunity to have done this study in the cohort now that Jersey City is part of nationally? in terms of the work the lab does?
Of course, yeah. So I am Paige Brochu. I am the director of the Spatial Analysis Lab here at the University of Vermont. I'm also a research assistant professor in the Rubenstein School of Environment and Natural Resources. A lot of my previous work, so I was actually a postdoc here back in 2023, and then I took over as director in 2024, so just this past year. And a lot of my previous work is actually utilizing the tree canopy data sets that we produce here, really high quality, high resolution, down to 1/2 foot, 1 foot, or a meter, depending on what the community needs, and incorporating some public health metrics into that. A lot of my research is about the benefits, the protective kind of effect that tree canopy, green spaces, blue spaces, nature as a whole have on general human health and well-being, cardiovascular diseases, etc. But really utilizing GIS and the data that we have here to figure out those different relationships. So I'm an environmental health scientist, epidemiologist, all of that, but really looking at, again, how can we utilize this GIS-based data to understand these different types of benefits. So in the lab, I was a technician here 10 years ago before I went off to graduate school and then came back. So it's a little bit of a homecoming sitting in this office now. But, it's, we have a team of about 14 full-time staff. So that includes Max as a senior technician. And Max has really taken the lead on this entire project, which has been phenomenal to see. So, he started out in all of these kind of stakeholder meetings and then really saw the project through from the beginning to the end. A lot of project management went in, a lot of communication. So it's really wonderful to see just how Max has completely taken over this project. And it's been wonderful to just sit back and hear about the great work that we're able to do here. So we have 14 core staff in our lab. And we have about 40 undergraduate or recent graduate technicians working for us. So they're on the manual corrections team, or they work on our UAS or drone team. And our manual corrections team, I think, is what really is the feather in our cap. One, it allows for students to have real world experience and work on actual projects that make a difference, like this Jersey City urban tree canopy assessment and tree canopy change analysis, where they're looking through an automated output system and data set, and they're really looking at it with a fine-tooth comb. And that allows us to then produce almost 99% accurate data to folks like Jersey City. We look at anything from what's the tree canopy, what's the land cover look like in these areas, what's the tree canopy change over time when we think about, there's a lot of tree planting initiatives that have been done in the past 20 years. So how successful have those been? We can actually capture that. We can also capture looking at tree equity, right? When we think about how has planting kind of been, focused on certain areas versus others, and are people actually bearing the fruit of that new tree canopy? So we do a lot of really exciting things here. I think our bread and butter are these urban tree canopy assessments. And I'm, again, really excited to see these results and watch Max's presentation. So I'll pass it off to Max.
Just one quick question.
Yes.
You also just completed a similar canopy study for New York City, right? You've done about 80 or 90 of these across the country.
We've done actually over 100. So we've done this, and it's not even just 100 projects. We've mapped over 100 communities across the nation, within Canada. We've mapped tree canopy, just land cover, but we've also done this for tree canopy change of over, I think the most recent number I found was 50 communities across the country, which again, so now Jersey City has this data set, and you fit within this larger cohort where folks can utilize this tree canopy data for understanding the distribution of heat and how trees can alleviate that, or again, equity. Who really needs the benefits of this tree canopy, and how can we kind of, plant in certain areas? So yeah, welcome to the larger cohort.
Yeah, and just that last question. What's your affiliation with the U.S. Forest Service? Aren't you guys affiliated?
Yep. So we have a partnership with the U.S. Forest Service where we developed these urban tree canopy change and just urban tree canopy assessment methods with their help. And that has been over a 20-year partnership. So again, with understanding all of the expertise that the U.S. Forest Service brings to us, and then the questions that they're also interested in answering, our methodology is able to help that.
Terrific. Good.
And happy to share my email at the end of this. I know Max and Marie are also on this call, so feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about the report, the presentation, methods, anything like that. But I will pass it off to
Everybody's
Max.
going to put you on speed dial. All right.
We love what we do here, right?
That's
Which is
clear.
really great.
That's clear. Well, all right. Here we go. So Max Salter, thank you so much for everything you've put into this, and thanks for, sort of being available to break it down for everybody.
Yeah.
So the floor is yours.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, thank you so much for the introduction. It's been a pleasure to work on this project, especially like you said, I'm from the Jersey City area, so it makes it even extra special. Definitely when I was at home at Thanksgiving, I was looking at things quite a bit differently now, which is funny. And yeah, like Paige, I also started working at the lab in college, except I just have not left yet. They keep kind of giving me cooler and cooler stuff to do, such as do tree canopy reports. So yeah, I have been at the lab for 5 or 6 years now, and it's been fantastic. Recently, just going through some changes at the lab has been great. Also being able to pick up responsibilities like this one. So yeah, this will be a 45-minute presentation. We thought then after that we could just have about 15 minutes where we just go over some other just municipalities, areas in which we've done tree canopy assessments and how they've utilized the data. And then after that, we were thinking just a Q&A, which would take up the rest of the time to answer any questions that anyone would have, or even just look deeper into some data sets if we want. So yeah, by the end of this presentation, I just also hope that everyone here is able to communicate the data that we collected here. And yeah, so let's go on. So just to start off, right off the bat, the findings of the tree canopy study. So our good news for everybody, but the tree canopy has been increasing. The dates for this tree canopy study was 2013 to 2023. So it's really nice that we have a kind of a clear decade there where we can measure the change in tree canopy. So we were able to find that in 2013, tree canopy ranged from about 10.7% of coverage. And then in 2023, it was about 15.1% of coverage. So this represents a 4.4 increase, which actually is relatively sizable. It might not sound like too much just off percentages, but that has a huge impact on the ground. And because of the way that we're able to collect this data, we are also then able to display this as in terms of acreage as well. So, this 4.4% of gain doesn't show the whole story because, every part of Jersey City experienced growth, but also there was loss too. We were just lucky that growth outpaced the loss in this situation where, we had 646 acres of gain of tree canopy versus 226 acres of loss. So that 15% number actually results in a total of 1,410 acres of tree canopy across Jersey City, which is a 409 acre change since 2013. Another statistic that we do like to use is the relative change, which will explain more of the magnitude of the change. I like to think of this as if you have a parking lot which has very sparse tree canopy and they add 1 or 2 trees, this will have a much larger difference on the actual land cover than, for example, in Liberty State Park, where tree canopy is more abundant and adding 1 or 2 trees will not make as large of a difference. So the relative tree canopy change for Jersey City over this time period was 41%. So in order to complete this land cover mapping, we just allowing, looking at the land cover and classifying it in many different ways, such as tree canopy, grass, buildings, water, other paved surfaces, bare soil, and roads. This allows us to categorize Jersey City land cover into a couple different suitability metrics. These suitability metrics I'll get into in just a second here, but just for an example of the data that we use here, we use a combination of both imagery data sets, which contain NAPE, so it will contain the near infrared band. That allows us to derive so many different statistics, which gives us really good look at the vegetation of an area. Combining that with elevation data found from LiDAR, which we actually procured from Jersey City, allows us to also then add in the elevation aspect to that puzzle. So in our automated algorithms, then we're able to actually look at this thing and say, okay, this is a very tall object. What is the vegetation on it? We can go, oh, it is tall, and it is also has high vegetation values. We are able to classify it as tree canopy. So you can see in the image just in front of you, these are the 7 classifications actually placed on the landscape. As you can see, water, tree canopy, grass, shrubs, impervious surfaces, roads, and buildings. So with that, we're able to create suitability metrics. These are broken up into 4 different categories. The existing tree canopy, that'll just be tree canopy that is there and is holding steady. Possible vegetated tree canopy. This represents pretty much all different areas that are grass or shrub. This can be thought of as very much like pie in the sky wishes, as terms of like, well, everybody's front lawn that has grass on it, we would love for there to be a tree. This metric takes into account pretty much all of those spaces across Jersey City. So it is possible, but it would be difficult. A level even more difficult for tree planting is possible impervious tree canopy. So these are areas in which there's impervious surfaces. Not often do we see municipalities tearing up their asphalt, but sometimes it does happen. And in that case, then you could be planting trees there, but there is an additional level of difficulty in planting trees in these areas, and then just not suitable. We will not be growing trees on top of in the middle of roads. Homes usually are not built in order to grow trees inside them or on top of them. So those are areas in which we do not suggest trees be planted. So we can also look at this in terms of just a bar graph, both in terms of acreage and percentages. So we can see here that the existing tree canopy and the possible tree canopy of Jersey City are pretty much almost equal, which is very interesting. You think of the possibility of there is the potential there to double the amount of tree canopy, although like I said, this is broken up into private land, public lands altogether, so there is more dynamics to that. But then we can also see that possible impervious surface and not suitable areas account for a majority of the land cover of Jersey City, which does make sense. We are an urban environment, especially with a decent amount of industrial areas too, which historically are not very tree canopy dense. Okay, and so once we have that 7 class land cover for both 2013 and 2023, we actually then pretty much go and subtract the 2023 tree canopy by the 2013 tree canopy. This then allows us to get a fairly detailed map of tree canopy change in Jersey City. So just some of those results here in terms of acreage. The change area, so there was 635 acres of gain. That is areas in Jersey City where either like trees were planted, trees could have naturally grown, matured, so their canopy covers more. No change is areas in which tree canopy has stayed the same. In 2013 it was present. In 23 was present as well. And then loss is, you know, it is present in that 2013 data, but then something happened in between that decade where, you know, whether it be development, whether it be a tree just naturally dying, that tree is no longer there providing tree canopy. And so just some examples to look at that and how that looks actually on the map. And this will be cool. One of the things that we'll be providing is a story map. So people will actually be able to go in and look at this data, you know, in great detail on their own. But just to look at some areas quickly, just an example, so people can get an understanding. This is right by Dickinson High School, right up on Newark Ave. If you're looking right to the left of the highway there, we can see in the imagery, it is not as clear as the LiDAR, which I'll show you, but there, and between this is 2015 imagery, 2022 imagery, you can see some growth, but when it really pops up is in the LiDAR, and the LiDAR is just so important for this work. You can see here in that same area, right by Dickinson, also. Sorry, can you guys see my mouse pointer? Actually, I just don't want to be pointing to things on the screen and it not actually be readable.
Can you move it a
Can you
little
move
bit?
it around?
Yeah.
It's really tiny.
Oh, sorry about that. This work? There, is that popping up, the annotation?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can see in this area right next to Dickinson High School. Get out of annotation mode. Okay. So in the LiDAR, this is 2013 LiDAR. We can see that the ground cover is very, very smooth here. This just pretty much gives us a detailed look at the tree canopy. So this, the tree canopy that is classified in this lighter blue is no change. The teal represents gain and the orange represents loss. So for example, you'll see right here, was a tree that was, you know, a relatively large tree right on the side of Dickinson as you're coming up that hill in 2013. So with that. But then when we look at the 2023 LiDAR, we can see that the tree has been removed, the singular tree, but there has been a lot of growth in this area. Just kind of flipping.
Can I ask 2 questions real quick?
Yeah.
The LiDAR, were they both the same time of year? Do we have like a date for both of them?
We do not have an exact date.
Or same time of year? I'm assuming like both in July or
Yeah, LiDAR is usually collected during leaf-on conditions if it's correct. Usually in LiDAR, you know, just we are able to see, you know, just when, you know, if it's flown in leaf-off conditions, just the tree canopy will be pretty much not visible.
I can check
Yeah.
for you, Max, while you continue to present, and then I can post
That would be
that in
great.
the chat.
Okay,
Great,
perfect.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Paige.
And I actually wanted to ask one more question about the LiDAR itself. How I know it's accurate, but to what degree is the LiDAR accurate? Does it take it in feet or does it do it in inches? Do you know the to what extent accuracy it is?
Not off of the top of my head, but that is a statistic that I could figure out pretty quickly.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine. It can
it's
be put in the chat too. That's totally
yeah,
okay.
it's calculated in points per pixels or
Points
points per
per
meter.
square meter.
Yeah, points per square meter, and then that'll translate into how many pixel points get into the LiDAR data sets that we're looking at now.
So the good news, Amanda, is that the MUA contracted for this most recent LiDAR. So that information is pretty readily available.
Yeah. And it is interesting to know, though, just this is good to know, but yeah, the 2013 LiDAR is, because it was a decade ago, the technology was not advanced and it is not as, detailed. With this new 2023 LiDAR, we are able to pick up on a much finer level tree canopy, which makes it exciting as in, thinking about a next iteration down the line, doing a comparison to 2023, just the results will become much, even more robust as the data sets just become more detailed. So yeah, just, thinking about that is really good to think about.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, gosh, sorry, I'm just gonna do this on thing, see if I can get rid of these. Okay, nice. Okay. And another example here is Black Tom Road over by Caven Point. So this is just an area which even I'm personally curious about too, what happened here. This is an interesting situation. I just would want to point everybody's attention to the trees over on this side of the road here, right by Caven Point. This is a situation where we're actually seeing in the 2015 imagery and the 2022 imagery, we can see that there has been some canopy loss, but it is not as severe as what we see in the LiDAR here. This is because from my understanding is that these trees in 2022 were actually cut down in between the time period of when this imagery was taken and when the LiDAR was taken. So within that 1 year interval, and whether that be because there's development going on here, I'm not sure, because it is possible that these specific trees had a disease or something and needed to be cut down. But that is just also a situation where local knowledge really comes into play and giving context to these changes and can be just super helpful. So yeah, so we're looking at imagery here. So this is 2022 imagery. However, looking at the LiDAR, this is 2013. We can see this large bit of orange on the left here will all be lost in the 2023 LiDAR. So it does look like it was pretty specifically cut out in that area, and just I have many questions now when I'm walking around Jersey City looking at the tree canopy. It's honestly changed my perspective a lot. So the fun thing. So yeah, so that is pretty much what the actual data looks like in terms of the categories and how it's distributed. But another way that we like to look at the data, and it's such a powerful aspect of pretty much creating a raster image where every pixel has a classification of Jersey City, is that we can get very detailed statistics for many different types of areas. And so we call these geographies. Kind of a simple way of putting it is geographies are just kind of like shapes or polygons that we can stretch across the landscape in order to give us better insight. So this can be something such as political boundaries, such as wards, neighborhoods, but it can also, what we can do is use non-political boundaries. So one thing that we can do with mapping software is pretty much just draw hexagons across an area. So this is a 10-meter, these are 10-meter hexagons that have been drawn all across of Jersey City. Ooh, excuse me. And then the existing tree canopy and all of those other statistics, such as possible tree canopy, relative tree canopy, have been calculated for each hexagon. So what this allows us to do, and one of the reasons hexagons is nice, is because it's not a human-made boundary. It kind of lets us look at the coverage of Jersey City's tree canopy without human influence. These are arbitrarily drawn. So it is interesting is that you can pretty clearly see areas such as Liberty State Park here, which have a much higher tree canopy percentage and it's much broader. This is, I believe this is Hamilton Park right here. I think this is Van Voort. I'm very confident that this is Hamilton Park and this is Van Voorst Park. Even things like golf courses right on the water. It is very interesting when you start to bring these layers in and just look at the distribution. Because then, when we're looking at the north and the south of Jersey City to these super industrial areas, the tree canopy is much more sparse. And, this is something that is relatively easy to see when actually looking at the raster data at the image. But having the numbers associated with it can be very powerful, and allowing you then to take that data and draw different relationships between different data sets.
Thank you, Paige. Paige put the dates of the LiDAR, Amanda, in the chat.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Paige. So yeah, we can see here we have, and all of these slides will be available, as well as all of these geographies will be present in the story map that can be, viewed online by pretty much anybody with a link. So yeah, possible tree canopy vegetation is also very interesting to look at, just because you can clearly see, areas in which there are parks. But then looking just, pretty much towards the middle in the majority of Jersey City, there's not a ton of room to work with. We're looking at 0 to 10%, just even grass or shrubby areas. So that can, create challenges in terms of making sure that the more urbanized areas are, being properly served in terms of, having ecosystem services and infrastructure, provided for them. This is just the absolute change. So, as we can see in most ways that we split up Jersey City, there were broad gains. However, looking at a more detailed version of tree canopy change, we can see that there are areas that did experience loss, almost up to 40% in terms of these 10-acre hexagon ranges. But, it is interesting to see in Lower State Park, there are parts of that experienced, larger percentages of loss than gain. It's just the entirety. We did see gains across the board, especially in those industrial areas in the north or south of Jersey City. It's very present. Okay, and then relative percent change. Yeah, I won't go through all of these geographies because that would take us forever, but I will just point out some interesting things. And, during the Q&A, we can feel free to go back to any of these. So like I was saying, and then once we do have detailed land cover and tree canopy data, that allows us to then look at other metrics that don't necessarily have to do with land cover, but one thing that is readily available is heat island or surface temperature data from, oh my gosh, Rosie, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the satellite that was used to collect this data. But we do have,
Landsat 9.
Thank you. Yes, the Landsat 9 satellite provide, there's actually free open source data for everybody to download for surface temperatures. So what you're looking at now is just the surface temperatures in the summer months of 2023. This is just the averages, placed out along Jersey City. So then once we have this data with the hexagons, we can then, create a geography that, communicates the relationship between tree canopy and mean surface temperature. So, just really quickly here, we can see that in this bivariate analysis, it's broken up into, a 9-square legend here, where at the very bottom, we can see that that's areas that have low tree canopy, but also relatively low temperatures. If we go up into the top left, that would, and once again, we're looking at places like Lower State Park. We can see that, these are areas in which there is high tree canopy, but also then low mean surface temperatures, which makes a ton of sense for a large park like Lower State Park, especially because it is right on the water, experiences a cooling effect because of that. However, though, if we go into like the top right corner, these are areas that, have very high tree canopy percentages, but yet still experience the highest of the mean surface temperatures across the summer months.
What would
so
that lead to?
Sorry.
I mean, that might be an obvious answer to some folks on the call, but I'm just curious, what would have it be that those temperatures are so high where the canopy density is also high?
If anybody else would like to answer, but I have some thoughts. I wouldn't want to say that this is exactly the reason why, but yeah, anybody else who has some thoughts first.
You're asking, what was the question again?
So there's high tree canopy density and very high temperatures where one would think, using the example of Liberty State Park, you know, where the canopy is dense and the temperatures are actually cooler as a result. But there are parts of the city where the canopy is dense, but the temperatures are still very high. And I'm curious as to why.
So one of the possible reasons could be that you have very a lot of impervious surfaces as well, such as asphalt, as in sidewalk, and roof structures that are dark, because the surface temperature that we're looking at is land surface temperature, and that really is it's not the air temperature that we experience when we have tree canopy. When we talk about urban heat, the normal temperature that we feel, it's a slightly different thing from surface temperature. But there is a definite positive correlation between surface temperature as well and air temperature, and air temperature is what we experience as urban heat. So the air temperature is the surface temperature is the immediate response that you have from on the surface. So if you have surfaces which are impervious, dark, and made of specific materials that absorb heat, on satellite imagery, that will show up as very high temperatures.
And I was just taking a look to, piggyback off of Rosie. I think that she's correct. It looks like there's not a lot of street trees. There's a lot of trees in people's backyards. So the impervious surfaces of the tops of buildings leading directly into sidewalks and the asphalt of the roads, there's nothing to mitigate that. So that's where the heat all comes from.
I see. And is it also the case, if this is showing, or to your point, you were trying to make a distinction, Rosie, that if this is the surface temperature, reflecting surface temperatures, it's not necessarily how human beings would be experiencing
So
this?
yeah, it's not exactly what you will experience, because the air temperature is a little bit more dynamic. It's influenced by also the wind conditions and just like the meteorological conditions of that change during the whole day as well as change during the year. So it is related in that as you have higher temperatures, surface temperatures, that will feed into higher air temperatures, but it's not an exact 1:1 relationship.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, just a interesting relationship to see as well is in these in the north and south, these super industrial areas, where there's almost no tree canopy. However, it is not the hottest places in Jersey City, because I think just proximity to the Hudson River, very much like Liberty State Park. But yeah, lots of questions to derive from it. It's really interesting. Okay. And so that was all the hexagons, but pretty much just, when we do these reports, we ask for geographies, and these were provided by Sustainable Jersey City as well as the City of Jersey City. But census block groups is another extremely powerful geography, because that then, connects us to so many different statistics, because just so readily there's available data from places such as the American Community Survey, that give relatively detailed statistics such as population, income statistics. And so that's another very powerful thing with this data, is being able to look at demographic data and then look at the relationship between that and tree canopy in Jersey City. So these are the census block groups for 2020. Like you see again, so we have the same statistics of the existing tree canopy, possible tree canopy, the absolute change, and then also the relative change. But also what we have completed is equity analyses that contain data from the American Community Survey. Specifically, this is looking at non-white population percentages. So this is another bivariate relationship where we are pretty much putting up the non-white population to see how that relates to the existing tree canopy percentage. So just it also extremely important because this just allows you to get down into look at communities that could be underserved and could be forgotten when, thinking about planting trees. Like I said, it's an extremely valuable ecosystem, like ecological infrastructure and provide very valuable ecosystem services. We want to make sure that everybody is included when we're thinking about increasing this tree canopy. So just, historically populations that are non-white have not been as well served, as well as, just households that do not have a lot of money. That, is relatively clear, but also then when placing it on a map and showing the relationship to tree canopy, it also becomes super interesting. One thing is just, pops right off is just the downtown area. You can almost see like from the Journal Square area all the way up to Hamilton Park. These areas that, are relatively affluent and do contain very high tree canopy. However, though, it is not a one-to-one relationship. It is also very interesting to look at other communities and block groups, such as like in the West Side, where, we still do have a large amount of tree canopy, but these are also areas in which, contain very, very poor households. So maybe in these specific areas, tree canopy isn't necessarily what they need, or maybe like you were saying, it is actually street trees that are super important. Rather than trees in people's backyards. So just, it is important to make sure that we are being effective in our efforts to, increase tree canopy, to preserve it, and just seeing a relationship of different demographics can really help narrow down where it'll be most effective to increase tree canopy, or, just increase protection efforts. Wards, another incredibly important political boundary. That allow people to connect to, local representatives. My understanding that there was also some redistricting in Jersey City as well. So that can create, confusion for people. Providing maps for people that show like, wards, other political boundaries allow them to get, more involved and empowers them to search out their own opportunities and research, and as well as affect change. So this is a good example here of how we can look at different graphs and then derive information on the tree canopy. So this is the suitability assessment. So we can see here, for example, in Ward A, let's look at Ward E, for example, actually has the highest amount of existing tree canopy coverage here. So that is the downtown area. They have the highest percentage. However, they also contain the lowest amount of possible tree canopy planting through possible vegetation percentages, which is really interesting. That the possible impervious and not suitable percentages greatly outweigh the possible vegetation percent for planting trees. So this kind of can give insight onto, okay, in Ward E, it seems like, we're kind of maxed out on areas to potentially plant trees. Obviously, there is still always opportunities, but when looking at, for example, Ward A, which contains Liberty State Park, so that would make sense that they have a ton of grass and shrubbery areas that potentially could have trees planted on them, or, would be much easier to have trees planted than, impervious surfaces or not suitable areas. So then we also have tree canopy metrics associated with these.
Can you just go back a second,
yeah.
Max? So
Yeah, no
if you
problem.
look at Ward D, which has the least existing tree canopy, the way to read this, are we suggesting that possible impervious where the pink is indicating that there is, so the pink and the gray are basically suggesting that it's less likely an opportunity
Yes.
to plant trees.
Yep, those are areas such as roads, buildings, asphalt, other impervious surfaces, the areas where you would have to really start digging up, and greatly changing the landscape.
Okay.
Not so I'm saying it's
But it
not
also shows then possible vegetation in yellow,
Yes.
where Ward D has some opportunities.
Yep.
In a good way. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. When we're looking at the total percentage and the distribution, for example, I would say, oh yes, Ward D would be better place to look at planting trees because there's more opportunities just in terms of the land cover, when we're looking at possible vegetation.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So then we can also look at detailed statistics, such as the existing tree canopy, and then in acres, the actual change area, and then the relative percent change. So what we can derive from this graph, for example, is that, in Ward A, it has very similar tree canopy percentages coverage to the entirety of Jersey City. However, when we're actually talking about acreage, and mostly this is because Ward A contains Liberty State Park, it is not exponentially, but much higher acreage than the rest of the wards in Jersey City. So this is just really important to note that, in Ward A, they have control over, the majority of Jersey City's acreage and tree canopy. Sorry, not exactly the majority, but a very significant portion, larger than any other ward. So, people who live in Ward A, they, disproportionately have more control through, if they're, for example, if we're just thinking about city councilors and stuff like that. Just it's important for these people to know that, hey, a lot of the Jersey City tree canopy is actually in your living boundaries, and maybe some people don't know that and aren't as aware and don't think, aren't as activated in terms of wanting to, protect that tree canopy. So this can just give insight into people in various different ways on how to connect to their community. We can also just see that in Ward A, the tree canopy change acreage, there was the most change out of all the other ones. So we did see that. And however, though, so we're getting just to get back to this relative change statistic, this is talking about the magnitude. Although Ward A did experience by far the greatest increase in acreage, it actually relatively did not have more tree canopy growth than Ward F. This is just because initially the change in Ward F, because of the size difference, just has a much bigger impact on the land cover. And so then if we're just actually looking at acres changed in the wards, so we can pretty clearly see here that this is that instance where Ward A did lose the most tree canopy coverage, but by far it also gained the most as well. Like I said, this is mostly tied back to how just, changes in Lurie State Park and the surrounding area have been going. I know it is just super interesting to dig into all this data. Okay, and so pretty much for the rest of this presentation, we just have these geographies. I'm just going to kind of just go through them, and then if anybody sees something that they really like to dig into during the Q&A, we can do that as well. I will also just point out some quick observations that just kind of hammer in on how to communicate and how to read these tables and this data, as well as also just give insight into future opportunities in terms, like, if you're thinking like, wow, I actually really wish we would have broken up Jersey City's land cover in this way. I'm super curious how this specific area relates to this area. The possibilities are really endless when it comes to how to look at the data. So neighborhoods are also an extremely important area. Jersey City has some very distinct ones and many different neighborhoods, depending on how you're looking at it. And so yeah, you just have a key here, and then just you can kind of get a sense across the neighborhoods. However, in the graphs that are associated, in this specific instance, it is very nice to look at maps and you can kind of see trends. For example, in absolute change, you can see going down the middle, and the heights of Jersey City experienced larger absolute changes than the rest of Jersey City. But what is also very helpful is actual graphs that you can look at. And so here we can see that, for example, Jackson Hill actually has the highest percentage of tree canopy at, over 40%. This is mostly due to the size of it. We can also see that, Hoboken Yards, very, very little place to plant new trees. Probably would not be like fixating on that specific neighborhood. And then we have it broken down into percentages, acres, the change and the relative change once again. So like before, we can see, that Jackson Hill area has a huge amount of tree canopy covering it, but it also has a lot of acreage compared to other neighborhoods in Jersey City. The only one that can actually rival it is the Lower East State Park area. So it's just super important to notice that. And just by looking at this, you can clearly see, like, Hackensack, very, very low tree canopy percentage. That's probably an area that I would want to look at more closely. However, because it had so little
Not
tree
an
canopy.
industrial area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so then just the acreage changed too. Once again, we can see that places that had the most growth also usually experienced the most loss. However, the growth outpaced the loss, which is what we want to see. Districts, also very important. Similar classifications. Because districts do cover a much larger percentage of area, you can kind of get a better sense. So yeah, so for example, in Greenville, and Bergen and Lafayette almost experienced the same amount of growth and the same amount of loss, which is very, very interesting, but it kind of makes sense as those areas are more, closely situated compared to somewhere like downtown. Or Journal Square is interesting too. One of the things that we were able to do with census block groups, as well as land use data, is create really detailed land use data sets. So this just kind of breaks down exactly how the land in Jersey City is being used, whether that be private land, residential, commercial area. It does make a very pretty map. However, the map is very hard to read. So in these specific situations, relying on graphs to actually give us a better insight is super helpful. We can see that, by far the most land use with the highest amount of tree canopy associated with it is cemeteries and graveyards. That makes sense. It's some of the biggest open spaces in Jersey City. However, it's important to note, though, it's not all cemeteries, graveyards are, publicly available. So those are private, could be potentially private areas in which Jersey City doesn't have a ton of say over their tree canopy. You can also see here in terms of the places where that are available to grow trees, cemeteries and graveyards has absolutely the most. However, planting trees in those situations might be difficult because there are, graves that you must, you have to respect. And yeah, just even looking at, in residential land areas, we can see that it's, reaching on about 16–17% tree canopy. However, the possible vegetation is just not very high. It looks like in these residential areas in Jersey City, things like grass lawns, are not super common. I'm so glad, Amanda, that you did point out just the relationship between street trees, and in these areas we do see a lot more trees in people's backyards, which can be, it's amazing and can be super helpful, provide great benefits to those people, but it is a more restricted benefit rather than if these trees are present on public spaces. So yeah, we can also just, you can see public land, we can look at public schools. Yeah, so it also just, the statistics can be helpful to read things. So for example, when we're looking at private schools, we can see that there's a pretty sizable, they have over 10% tree canopy coverage on private school land. However, when we're actually looking at acreage, because the land of private schools is so little in Jersey City, relatively, the existing tree canopy on those areas doesn't even make it on the graph, because that is just such a small part of Jersey City. However, but we can see on public land, on things like parks, that is where the vast majority of existing tree canopy in Jersey City is located. So that is just very, very good to know in terms of, it seems kind of obvious, but having the actual knowledge and, numbers available to say, yeah, parks are extremely important for tree canopy.
So Max, what does other mean?
Other is just areas in which the Census Bureau just had other as the classification. Yeah, usually there will be just some land cover that either they did not classify or doesn't particularly fall into specific land cover categories. I will say the amount of land that is other is relatively negligible. It's an extremely small part of Jersey City. However, it still does contain decent amount of tree canopy, and this is mostly due because that is like right of way areas, such as more industrial spaces that people usually would not come in contact to in Jersey City. Yeah, pretty much. Let's see.
I mean, it's a sizable category. It's just curious about it because it's not industrial. It's not.
Yeah, so we can see that it's mostly falls into like vacant land, from what it looks like here. Oh wait, no, this is Side Hill. Sorry, not at all. Actually, it looks like this other covers areas that are like community housing, or just like community fenced in.
Curious.
I'm
That's
just
the question. We can put a pin
yeah,
in it. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but we can put a pin in that.
yeah.
think
Now
also-
now I'm curious myself.
Yeah, maybe also where we got this data from, right, Max? So if this was a data set that was provided to us like from Jersey City themselves, then it's, they would probably understand the category of other a little bit better. Might just be kind of a catch-all for all other land that doesn't
Yeah.
fall within the other, I don't know.
Yes, it is actually
15.
a data set. I think it is a data set that is from Jersey City. So
Mhm.
look at the map over there. It's a kind of like the back areas around industrial.
Yeah, this
industrial.
is actually a state data set, and looking at the map, I don't see any pattern in why in the other. We have condoed areas, we have
Yeah.
recycling center, we have strip malls,
Side Hill.
we have public housing,
So they almost could
all
all,
over the place.
to your point, Matt, and that's why I was referring to, Max, you passed the remark that you thought that was Society Hill there on the left.
Oh yeah, right here.
That you're saying that those are condos. So maybe some of this actually does need to be categorized properly. It just wasn't initially.
Yeah, seems like just this is what I downloaded from the state data set.
Yep.
So we
Okay.
can run it up to them.
Noted.
But super
Noted.
interesting. Super interesting. And then yeah, if we're just actually looking at the acres changed, once again, like the area that contains the most tree canopy will be the most susceptible to change in loss. So it's no surprise here that public land contain the most loss, but also the most gain. What is also very interesting is the increase in residential. These are significant changes, and shows just like a good trend in terms of how residential tree canopy is growing. The growth very much outpacing the loss.
That's
we
also
can
a
also-
really exciting kind of bar chart to look at, because through other kind of urban tree canopy assessments that we've done in the past, we actually sometimes see the reversal, right? Where the residential land actually has the most tree canopy and the most tree canopy change, because again, that's property owners wanting to plant more trees, trees increase property value, all of that. So it's really great to kind of see that in public land where, you know, Jersey City folks can actually kind of control that, the city themselves. It's great to see that there's been this increase.
Basically, we're talking about trees planted in parks.
Yep.
And residential, that's citywide. So like seeing that, because, you know, people are not always in parks. They're
Yeah.
residential neighborhoods. That's where trees are needed.
Exactly.
That's good to see.
Yeah, and also has the biggest impact on, you know, parks are incredibly important, but a tree right outside of your building will have a much larger difference than, you know, in the park, on your personal life, of course. So yeah, another way we broke up the land is into land ownership. This is also something that I was able to derive from parcel data. Just you know, you made it clear that, you know, it's very important to be able to understand where you can have the most impact on your resource, you know, on using resources. So just having an actual guide of, hey, so this is like public land, but not just is it public land, this is city land. So this is kind of a spectrum of, you know, how much control Jersey City has over specific land classes. So we can see here we broke it up into city land, which would be the most control, private land, which would have very little control, that's, you know, owned by private citizens or companies, and then public land. So that could be anything from state land, county land, just directly this Jersey City government does not have direct control over this land, is my understanding. And yeah, so once again, this is kind of a hard map to read. It looks really pretty, but it doesn't give as much insight as just graphs here, where we're able to see, you know, the amount of acreage on private land of tree canopy is relatively higher than the city land and the public land. This is just super important to know because even though Jersey City cannot directly impact private land on places like residential areas, you know, Jersey City can either, you know, influence citizens by, you know, saying if you do have area to plant trees, maybe you should. They can, you know, we can get more into this, but there is, you know, initiatives such as people coming and just picking up trees, allowing, you know, them to take into more control, but making it as easy as possible through resources from the state. Just each way that you address tree canopy, whether protection, growth, in every area will be different. And so these just statistics give a better sense of, yeah, it does seem like if we want to increase the tree canopy, we'll definitely have to have a, you know, a close relationship with private landowners in Jersey City because they own a lot of the trees. And yeah.
I think that on some of the assessments that you've done, I remember having a conversation with Jarlath about that. There were cities that Amanda developed specific programs to outreach to private landowners to increase the canopy.
Yep.
I mean, that's not gone on. There are some models for that across the United States. You can put a pin in that, revisit it.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it was Los Angeles had, not surprising, but private land ownership of trees was through the roof in Los Angeles, which, yeah, just creates its own problems and obstacles.
Are there
opportunities.
Programs that you guys have worked with to develop? I'm not sure if Jarlath had mentioned if it was Boston or another city that took on a particular focus on encouraging private landowners to plant trees. Does a model come to mind quickly before we move on?
I would defer to Paige. I don't think we have created a specific model with suggestions.
Yeah, I I agree with you, Max. I don't think we've created a specific model. I think that is really the cities or the communities that we work with is really taking the initiative, and then they're leveraging, right, the data sets that we're able to provide to them to showcase, you know, there is the possibility of increasing tree canopy on private land. So like thinking backyards, front yards, all of that by, you know, if it was 50%, that then the communities can go to their, you know, constituents, those residents, and say, you know, we're able to provide you with those trees if you do want to kind of plant those. I would have to do a little bit of digging to see if we've actually done anything more than just provide kind of some of these statistics.
Boston and New York were both able to take the data that we gave them and get a lot of funding for these community planting programs. So
Community
while we weren't
planting
involved in this,
programs on private land, Marie?
yes. So while we haven't been involved in developing those programs ourselves, communities have been able to use their data to get funding for these programs.
Right, I remember Charles mentioning Boston, and so Amanda, my New York City as well, so there are programs available to peek at in terms of what other cities have done. Thank you, Marie.
Yep.
So then just, acres change. We have seen private land people, I do think it is interesting as land values and property values have gone up in Jersey City, especially when specifically looking at private land. The amount of tree canopy on these areas have increased too. I know from my personal preference, people love a tree-lined street. It really does do wonders for just the aesthetics of a neighborhood, without even going into all of the health benefits and ecological benefits. So even that, we can really see that people are determined to have a relatively forested area where they live, which is good.
I want to be cognizant of the time here.
Yes.
Be able to field some questions for folks. Do you want to just point to some of the other things that you have here? Is this reflective of the report and all the data that has now already been transferred to the city for them to do their own analysis, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I can just run through these real quick. Just we looked at areas that are going to be heavily developed in the next couple of years. This is super important as it allows us to then go back retroactively and see how those developments have changed the land cover, especially when it comes to tree canopy. We have special improvement districts. I know, Deb, you mentioned just that, the Jackson Hill Main Street Special Improvement District is incredibly important as well, because there is collaborative efforts to increase the tree canopy in this area. And that is a program or system that could be then utilized in other special improvement districts across Jersey City. And also ones like redevelopment areas, just very important to, keep track of, so then you can have detailed statistics on how the land cover has changed, specifically trees in those areas, which are anticipated to go through significant amounts of development and change in the next couple of years. So obviously, we can look at, Exchange Place. It makes sense that it would contain a huge amount of change over the last couple of years. Parks are incredibly important. We also have so many of them in Jersey City, ranging from absolutely ginormous state parks like Liberty State Park to very tiny corner parks, and also community gardens. Also incredibly important when it comes to the local ecosystem, and monitoring those parks is incredibly important. Once again, kind of the map can be nice to look at, but really having the graphs there allows you to specifically look at each specific park and their own statistics. So we can see that in terms of existing trees, Liberty State Park is going to blow through all of these and make everything else look a bit significantly insignificant. But like we found, tiny parks are very important as well for communities, as well as just providing spaces for people to gather. Most change. Public housing is incredibly important, as this is other just indicators of communities that would be regularly more underserved, do not have as much representation, and so that is just also important to track this tree canopy. We don't have to really get into it, but there are so many various benefits for tree canopy that's been shown to have developmental effects on children. So pretty much anybody living in these projects, but especially when we're talking about Jersey City's youth, it does make a huge difference in their everyday life, even if people don't recognize it. Yep, so we can see like Marion Gardens had a huge amount of growth, Curry Woods as well. So pretty much what we're looking at is, Booker T. Washington is one of the very few areas in Jersey City which we did see like a actual loss in tree canopy.
It was interesting. I was over there the other day and they were just speaking out loud about how thankful they are for the number of trees they have.
Oh, well,
yeah. So
that's sweet. Public schools
noted.
also. Public schools also, we have many different schools in Jersey City. Also one of those situations where it's incredibly important for people, not just people, but youth too, to be in, heavily vegetated environments. Just even in terms of thinking like asthma rates and stuff like that. So then we have detailed statistics on each school. Road classification is also something that we did. Very interested in tree canopy on rights of ways in Jersey City, but like, the land ownership, we also, not every street is easy to plant a tree on. So it is really helpful to have municipal roads outlined. So this once again just allows us to, point towards specific efforts. It'll be easiest to change those situations because municipalities have control over those roads rather than if it was like a county road. Climate change is going to become much, much more prevalent already than it even is. Things like flooding is incredibly important to Jersey City, and trees once again provide amazing ecosystem services in terms of making an area more resilient to flooding. This is the FEMA 100-year floodplain. And so we can actually look at specifically inside this floodplain how trees are doing. So we can see that, in the floodplain, there was about a 4% increase in trees, which is better than decreasing, but these are areas which will also be incredibly important to not just vegetate with trees, but all different types of vegetations to make sure that, just city as resilient as possible. Trees are excellent environmental barriers. And then just Jersey City Reservoir, it's a great example of just an area in which, deep in the urban environment of Jersey City, people really do feel like they're able to, get closer to nature in these areas. And it's incredibly important to have it in such an urban environment for people to just be able to walk down the street. And, I love, I absolutely love the reservoir, and it is just a crazy feeling to feel so distant from the city, yet you're still right there. So just these are also areas that are incredibly important. One, because they contain a huge amount of tree canopy. 85% of the land area on the reservoir is covered by tree canopy, so that would, not be including the area that's water. It's also incredibly important community areas. And yeah, so that is everything that has been included there. Definitely would like to take any questions that people have. Or just would like to look at anything.
I have just one
more in depth.
question, and then I'm probably have to jump off. But so like in the Meadowlands where we have like a good deal of like Phragmites that help with soil stabilization or riverbank stabilization, like but shows low, I guess, tree canopy. Like because of the context of that, is there ways to control for some of those other vegetation beneficial kind of effects?
I'm trying to think. Your page, if just so including other different types of vegetation.
So I guess, are you thinking, is there a way for us to differentiate between what's tree canopy versus like what's, a
Medium
Phragmites
vegetation?
or, an invasive species? Or like different
Yeah,
like shrubs or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean it is absolutely invasive, but it does have
It does have
just
benefits.
a
No, I agree.
have benefits.
I will say I am extremely familiar with the vegetation that you're talking about, because that was, just these automatic classifying algorithms can have some tough time, especially when there is dense vegetation that does, these Phragmites grow so high. So that is actually something that our manual corrections team had a very specific look into, is making sure that, that everything was properly classified. Definitely.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so one of the things is that in our automated kind of feature extraction that we do, one of the kind of rule sets that we have is that anything over 8 feet in height, that has kind of a rough texture to it, right? So if you are able to look at the LiDAR, you can kind of see like that's a tree canopy versus a flat or smooth surface is a building. And we just classify that as tree. And then that's when our manual corrections team, like Max was saying, kind of goes through and actually differentiates between, is that an actual tree or is that just really tall shrubs? And then that gets classified as other vegetation.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
moving forward, I think it'd be really great if we were able to differentiate between, what's a tree versus what are these, invasive shrubs that do offer greenery. They do offer probably some temperature benefits, but maybe when we think about conservation and biodiversity, maybe not the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
And did you guys also do the LiDAR collection? I was kind of out of that process.
no, that I believe that was,
The
sorry, Deb,
MUA,
if you.
yeah,
Okay.
the
All right.
MUA did that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think
Thank you
back
for the presentation.
that's the most recent one. I think in 2013, wasn't it the U.S. government post Sandy?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, that was the initial one. So that
Yeah,
was
so that was 20, it was like, I think I put it in the chat. It was fall of 2012, actually.
oh, good to know.
But I think we edited based on the 2013 imagery. So if it was
Yeah.
seen in the imagery but not seen in the LiDAR, we edited to that 2013. So then we could say that this was about a decade of change that we were witnessing.
Okay,
Yeah.
in both cases, those were leaf on.
Yep.
LiDAR's done. Okay.
Yeah, and
Good.
it is it is a good thing to think about is as LiDAR gets more detailed and the technology becomes more robust, those differences in vegetation will be easier to point out. Not just for us in our automatic mapping thing, but artificial intelligence is becoming pretty good at classifying these things. Not not good enough to the point where we wouldn't need manual text to go over it. But good enough where we could get a relatively good sense of the differences in vegetation. And yeah, having like a medium-sized vegetation, like a bush class, can be super helpful for city planners. However, that is I will say it is another level of complexity that can seem relatively simple, but once you get into the weeds of it, there is a lot to it for sure.
No pun intended.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to ask real quick if the slides that you presented here will be provided.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I think that I think that your presentation was really wonderful. It's so great to see this in so many different ways. I think that you broke it down in like a really great way that one, the public can really understand, and two, that we can really use and utilize elsewhere in other projects. I'd like to say, and this is like a little bit of bias because of what I do for the city. My role is to plant trees mainly on impervious surfaces, so looking at planting in sidewalks. And so I noticed that, like, certainly in the report, but I know you talked about it a lot here in this presentation. So that's something that I'm very curious about. And I'm glad to see that it's definitely a part of the data, and looking forward to kind of like diving into this data that
Awesome.
that way I can actually like kind of build out something. But
Yeah.
Is
no,
there,
thank you.
because there maybe if there's something specific, Amanda, about the impervious data, impervious surface data, that you have a question that you would like to, sort of draw out of that data to maybe reference it here now? Do you have something specific on your mind?
I mean, like, so I see that possible tree canopy impervious includes asphalt, concrete, or bare soil, excluding roads and buildings. So I'm assuming that includes both concrete when it comes to sidewalks, but also asphalt when it comes to maybe parking,
Yep.
rather than roads. And so the only thing that I would have preferred a differentiation is between the asphalt when it comes to parking and roads.
Mm.
But in reality, that's, I mean, there's no way you could have known that. So that's the
Yeah.
one, I think, difference
So
that I would have
is that
like
something to
wished
be
that
done?
happened, but
That's
that's
something
okay.
that can be done?
If we did have a layer that pointed out parking lots,
Yeah.
which is something that sometimes municipalities do have, then it would be a relatively quick, quick
Okay.
operation. And yeah, I
So
don't tell any
that
of
can
the
be
others.
integrated if the city has the
Yes,
layer. So maybe
yes,
ask
and
city planning if they do, and you can integrate it.
So the
yeah,
possible impervious tree canopy layer that Max has the definition of right here is that does exclude it is based off of the 7-class land cover. So it excludes anything classified as roads. It doesn't include anything classified as other paved. So I don't think we did a specific parking lot classification, but anything that is a main road for sure is excluded from that category. So I hope that helps.
It's a good
yeah,
starting
No, I
point, I
think that
think.
really does. Exactly. It's a great starting point. And I'm only coming off the top of my head thinking about parking lots, but I'm sure there's other asphalt that's out there. So I think that there's other types of classification that it would like need to be broken down even further. But
mhm,
just to start with, looking at the possible impervious surfaces that for tree canopy, just having that as a layer is going to be helpful. So
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, of course. And like I was just saying, don't go telling any other cities about this, but just, I'm invested in this project in another way and will continue to work on it. And as my capacity as a member of Sustainable Jersey City rather than a lab research technician at the SAL. So there are just some things that are, relatively complicated in terms of running the metrics on these specific areas that, I will be available for. So feel free to reach out in any capacity.
Yeah, Max
Well,
is not
thank you.
going away, but we will ask if the city, has a parking lot layer, Amanda. It could be integrated
Mhm.
into the data pretty easily. So Max would be happy to do that, which would make it
Yeah,
easier to then work with and analyze in terms of your question.
yeah, we would be
Absolutely.
able
So
to
we'll look
class it
into
as,
that. Okay,
I think
yeah,
that's
for sure.
very,
noted.
very interesting. Yeah, definitely noted. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so the upshot here, Amanda, is that, and Max spilled the beans. We're pulling him back onto SJC's team, which he's delighted to work with Rosie and what we're about to do with the story map that you've asked us to develop. So, we've been earmarking certain aspects of this dialogue, which has been going on for months previous to the report being finalized, as to what we would want to do with the story map. Right now, Rosie's put together a dashboard which reflects the Davy data. So we've not integrated any of, any updates since the Davy data, meaning plantings by your office or any of this data. So before we undertake fully with the story map, we'll have maybe, a feedback session with you, as to some of the things that you'd like to see in that.
Excellent. I think that that sounds great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I do just want to be cognizant of everybody's time, but I am available to stay on and answer questions. I could talk about this for a very long time.
Any more questions from folks? Well, all right. As a matter of fact, Tanya, you're still on the call. Is it the case that the city and Cameron has a parking lots layer? I know Marking has been running point.
Well,
And
actually, Lindsay hopped in the chat, not to interrupt Tanya if she was about to speak, but she says that she has some parking GIS layers, but she doesn't know if it includes things like school parking or if it differentiates. So she's going to look into that.
Oh, terrific. Thank you. How good.
Awesome.
So anyone else?
Yeah.
All
And
right.
here, I will throw just my contact information in the chat, actually, just in case anybody has any other questions. Yeah, feel free to reach out whenever.
Thank you so much, Max. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Paige. You know,
Yeah, no, thank you, everybody. Yeah, and I guess just Marky and Deb, there's just some final stuff, just metadata and stuff has to be attached to some files, but I will send everything, you know, all the data sets and presentation report on your way. If not today, then, you know, very early next week.
Great.
Thank you so
Sounds
much,
good.
everyone.
This feels like a beginning versus the end of something.
It's a continuation. We love to see that our data is going to be utilized for so much more. And again, like you mentioned, Deb, like this is not the end. It's just now we have a baseline to work with and answer some of those more in-depth questions that is really important to your community. So it's great.
I appreciate that very much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really do.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
everybody.
folks.
Thank you all.
All
Have a
righty.
great rest of your
Have a
day.
good day, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Have a good rest of
Thank
your day,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.